Regent Bloom, you are live.
Thank you. Welcome to the September meeting of the Board Committee on Academic and Student Affairs. This marks the beginning of a new academic year in the university. Always an adventure in universities, and we'll see where it takes us. I'm going to ask the secretary to call the roll, please.
Thank you. Regent Bloom?
Present.
Regent James?
Present.
Regent McCarthy?
Present.
Regent Porth? Absence is noted. I'd also just like to take a moment to recognize Chair Ryan and our ex officio member, Professor Sasanker. And we have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Ms. Davis. First item of business is the approval. Before the approval of the minutes, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the agenda with an amendment. So we are going to the second item in the informational presentations, which is the enrollment strategy for international students. I'm going to ask for a motion to postpone that to a later meeting. That project is still under development, and additional stakeholders will need to be consulted. So I would ask for a motion to amend the agenda by deleting item 5A, informational items, presentation on international students, and secondly, thereafter, to approve the agenda as amended.
Move to amend.
Is there a motion, please?
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor of approving the agenda as amended?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The agenda is approved.
Regent Bloom, excuse me. I'd like
Yes.
to recognize Commissioner Jutani has joined you. Dr. Manisha Jutani has joined us, so I just want to make sure that that gets into the record. Good morning, Dr. Jutani.
Good morning.
Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. Okay, first item in the consent items is the discontinuation of the post-baccalaureate certificate in English. Provost Katoria.
Thank you, Regent Bloom. Good morning, everyone. The first agenda item here is discontinuation of a post-baccalaureate certificate in English from Southern Connecticut State University. Southern Connecticut State University seeks approval for the discontinuation of the post-baccalaureate certificate in English. This is the final program being discontinued in the restructuring of academic programming at the graduate level for teacher preparation. Students can now enter the teaching profession through an MAT graduate program and not only seek teacher certification in a subject area, but simultaneously meet requirements for their professional certification requirements in obtaining a master's degree. AVP Milburn will speak to the item and introduce colleagues as needed to comment and answer questions. AVP Milburn.
Yes, hello. Thank you for having me, Dr. Kathuria. So as was mentioned, we are just cleaning up the undergrad post-bac certificates. This was the final one going through to ensure that all of the students have moved over to the option of the MAT, for which they will receive financial aid, which is more beneficial for them in addition to their official certification at the master's level.
Thank you. Any questions from the regents? Seeing no questions, motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is approved. The second item, consent item, discontinuation of minor in sports studies at Southern. Provost Kathuria.
Thank you, Regent Bloom. Southern Connecticut State University seeks the approval for the discontinuation of the sports studies minor. The program has struggled to recruit students into the minor despite believing that it would be a popular addition to the Department of Health and Movement Sciences list of offerings. AVP Trudy Milburn will speak to the item and introduce colleagues as needed to comment and answer questions.
Thank you again. So this minor has run for 5 years, and it never had more than 1% of our students who are minoring. So the department chose to focus its resources elsewhere and discontinue the minor. So we seek approval.
Questions? I assume that there's a teach out for any students remaining in the minor.
Yes, that is correct. There's very few, and they will be able to complete it.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from any of the regions? All those in favor of approving this item?
Aye.
Aye.
Excuse me, Regent Bloom, you need a motion and a second?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, okay.
So moved.
Is there a motion? Yeah, thank you, Regent McCarthy.
Second.
Second, okay. Motion is on the table. Motion to approve this item. Nobody?
No, you have to ask if we're in favor, don't you?
I'm sorry.
Oh, we have
We
motion.
have a first and a second.
Yeah.
We're ready for the vote.
Oh, yeah.
So-
In favor?
Aye.
All those
Aye.
in favor?
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is approved. Next item, the action item, occupational therapy MS at Southern. Is there a motion to put this in front of the committee?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We haven't voted yet.
Provost Kathoria? Provost Kathoria?
Oh, okay. Southern Connecticut State University seeks the approval for a new Masters of Science program in occupational therapy. This program is developed using specific strategies to keep the program length to 2 years, keep the costs reasonable, and reduce financial hardship. AVP Trudy Milburn and Dean Sandra Bulmer will speak to the item and introduce colleagues as needed to comment and answer questions.
Thank you again, Provost Kathuria. So we are extremely pleased to have this come before the board. This has been a long process, as you saw in the addendum. Since 2019, the College of Health and Human Services has been working on a proposal. They needed to seek external accreditation and receive permission to get a place in line, so to speak, in terms of the few number of programs that are approved nationally each year. So I turn now to Dean Bulmer to introduce more specifics about the program and answer any questions.
Thank you, Trudy, and welcome everyone. I'm really pleased to be here with you today. It's been a really exciting time for the College of Health and Human Services at Southern Connecticut State University. The support we've received has allowed us to implement a very aggressive and ambitious strategic plan that included last fall the opening of our new 94,000 square foot building. We had been planning that building for a decade, and we have built this for the future. We're very excited about some of the outcomes we have already. For example, we have a very ambitious goal that we are right on track for to double by 2026 the number of nurses that we graduate annually from our BSN programs. We have a $4.8 million partnership with Yale New Haven Health System that is enabling us to meet those goals and to support our students and increase access to that nursing degree. So there's a lot of really great news, and we have a good track record of partnering with our employers and developing programs that do address the workforce needs of the state. As we move forward, our goals are focused on enrollment, retention, and graduation, specifically to address workforce shortage areas. And one of those areas is occupational therapy. Historically, in the state of Connecticut, there have only been private school options available for students. And as you know, that does impact access and opportunity, in addition to the cost barriers that presents. We started this process, as Trudy mentioned, several years ago, and we had to go through a quite extensive process through the accreditation organization for occupational therapy. And we are really far down the road with those steps, and we can see the finish line in sight when we can finally start enrolling students and bringing in revenues for that program. So I will talk to you later about the budget. I was deeply involved with building that budget, so I feel I could respond and answer any questions you have. But we have two individuals with us who want to share some of the enthusiasm they have for the program that they've been building. They have just worked tirelessly this past year to do all of the internal work that's required on our university campus to write a program, write all the courses, get all of them approved, and get us to the point of going before the provosts that we did last spring. A lot of really great work has been done. So Dr. Jim McGregor is the chairperson for the Department of Recreation, Tourism, and Sport Management. The reason we're building this program in that department is that department has a very rich history of doing recreational therapy. And that is a close relationship we're going to capitalize on as we build the pipeline of undergraduates who will be coming into this program. And then our director, Heather Kolnick, is going to be really talking about the program because she's been leading us through this process. We're so grateful that we were able to secure her as a director. It's one of the biggest barriers that programs experience when they're trying to launch a new occupational therapy program and get it accredited. Many universities are unable to do this because they're unable to find a qualified director. We were able to entice Dr. Kolnick to come over from Sacred Heart University because she believed in the mission of what we were trying to do here. The idea that at this point in her career, she could build a public university program in the state of Connecticut and provide access and opportunity was just too enticing to pass up. And so we were able to bring her over. Right now, she is teaching other courses at our university because she's multi-talented, and she's working on release time to build the program with her colleague, Kyle O'Brien. So, Jim, I don't know if you want to say anything. I just want to commend you on your leadership of what you've done so far and let you introduce Heather if you would like to do that.
Jim, you're muted.
Thank you, Dean Bomer. Yeah, simply, I just like to say from a department perspective, we are super excited about the prospects of being able to offer this program. And simply, I'd like to now just introduce Dr. Kuhanik, again, the architect of the program, along with a colleague, Dr. Kyle O'Brien.
Good morning. I'm really excited for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about this program. We've been working very hard to create something that's innovative and very necessary. And the reasons why I feel it's very necessary, the first is that there's a huge shortage of occupational therapists in the state and also in the whole country. And one of the reasons that there's a shortage in our state is that all of our universities in this area are private and the tuition is very expensive. And so I was really pleased to be able to try to start a public program where our tuition costs will be lower. And also in the way we're designing the program, we're going to keep the cost down to hopefully ensure access to people who want to become occupational therapists that haven't been able to afford the private tuitions that are much, much higher than what we will have at Southern. So that's one reason I'm really excited about this program. The other reason I'm really excited about this program is that our profession really lacks diversity, and Southern has a very diverse undergraduate population that we expect to be able to pull from and draw from so that we will hopefully be able to have a more diverse cohort of occupational therapy students in our program and then out into the community as in our healthcare field, which is really, really important for our field as well as many other healthcare fields as well. So that was another thing that was very attractive about being able to be at Southern in particular for this program. The other thing is that because we're starting from scratch, we're able to develop something that's innovative and new and capitalizing on all the evidence out there for, evidence-based education practices in occupational therapy. And that's what we've been doing in developing the program. We're doing an integrated curriculum. We're following the therapeutic progression that's modeled by our national association, so that we're going to be teaching in the order of the sequence that students would be doing therapy when they get out, which is something that's kind of novel and only being done in a few different programs around the country. We're also going to be using a competency-based assessment approach, which is very common in Europe, but much, much less so in the United States, something that's kind of just developing here in the US. We are also going to be doing flipped classroom approaches, when people come to campus, they will be active and engaged in the classroom doing either laboratory exercises or case-based group learning, so that the time that they're spending on campus is very active and engaged. And then we're also going to be doing some really interesting and innovative community service kind of level 1 fieldwork. We have 2 different kinds of fieldwork we do in occupational therapy, and the first level of fieldwork happens while they're in courses. There are lots of different ways we can do that level 1 fieldwork, but we're really focusing on doing community-based activities here, which will also provide community service for New Haven. So that's another thing very exciting to us. So in general, our main focus was to try to do something innovative and new that will be an excellent program, but that will also keep costs down, keep the length of the program down, and be accessible and affordable for the students in our state. And thank you for letting me tell you a little bit about it.
It's certainly exciting to start a new program, I think, and shape it in the way you think it ought to be shaped. So my compliments to you. Dr. Johanna, do you have any comment about this program?
Dr. Jitani?
I'm sorry, did you want some comments from me on the program?
If you
Just wanted to give you the opportunity.
If you have any comments about.
Yes, no, I'm sorry. I thank you for directing me again. I just wanted to say that, having an option that is more affordable and can expand the healthcare workforce in the state, I'm always in support of that. And I think to give people an opportunity, we know that many of the allied health professionals, we're seeing shortages everywhere. So to be able to bring something online that is more affordable and can provide more access and potentially open up, the diversity of people who are entering the field, I'm in support of. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Comments or questions from the regents?
I have a comment.
Please, Regent James.
Thank you. I'm actually very excited about this, particularly with respect. I myself, through my child, had to really make use of occupational therapy, and he benefited greatly from the service. But we had the financial wherewithal to afford the service, whereas many families don't. So I am really very pleased, both in terms of the access that you're providing for practitioners, but also ultimately what that means in terms of access for the clients and the patients who need this service and for whom it is not as available as it could be because of the shortage of practitioners. I also very much like the competency-based approach that you're doing, as well as the case-based approach to the learning. So I was very excited to read about this new initiative.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the regents? Well, let me ask a few questions then, not to, some of the challenges that we're facing at the moment. The program involves the addition of 2 new lines, in addition to 2 new faculty lines, in addition to the lines that you have, and I think 5 adjuncts, if I remember correctly. So do we have the financial plan and wherewithal to accomplish that?
So thank you for that question and the other comments from the Board of Regents. It's exciting to hear the enthusiasm. The budget, we feel extremely confident that the revenues will be there to support this program and produce a profit, net profit beginning in year 4. We have 2 planning years, and we had no choice about that. It's a very difficult accreditation process to go through. But those 2 faculty members are here with us. They're doing other program service, and we're just using reassigned time to have them build the program during the planning year. We built this building with bond funds, and we built it for the occupational therapy program, and we were able to do a lot of the investing at that time. The first year, we feel very confident we'll hit our goal of a cohort of 40 students. And that group, as they move through into year 2, will be joined by a second cohort of 40. We have historically seen across other programs very low attrition in occupational therapy graduate programs. So we do anticipate we will hit our marks in terms of retention of those students. And you can see the revenue that beginning when that second cohort joins, we start to produce a substantial amount of revenues that exceed expenses for the program, even as we gradually bring on those other faculty resources. In year 1, we won't need all of the faculty at once, but year 2, when both cohorts are going simultaneously, we will have the need for those other lines. The wonderful thing about being the Dean of the College of Health and Human Services is it's a very diverse portfolio, and we hire people that are interprofessional. Unlike some of the other arts and sciences areas where people are so highly specialized that they are not able to teach in other areas, we just don't have that issue. Even our nursing faculty are flexible across many of our other programs. So that's how we've built the budget. We're feeling really, really confident about the enrollment. We've been modest in that regard. And so we think this will be a real asset to our financial health here at the institution, an investment in the future, and part of a rising tide, if you will. That's how I've been approaching my job as dean. I think that we are the solution for some of the drops in arts and sciences enrollments. We are, by building these types of master's degrees, we're going to be able to build additional enrollment in our undergraduate degrees. This is what Quinnipiac and the other privates have done. They allow a student to come into their undergraduate program with a guaranteed seat in their master's in an area that's hard to get into. And so we now will have the opportunity to draw in some very highly qualified undergraduates with a guaranteed seat that they can be in the occupational therapy program upon completion. So lots of new possibilities, and we are thinking big picture about the way this impacts the overall budget.
Thank you. You continue to be optimistic about the retention of students in the program. I mean, that you have a kind of more experimental admissions policy, more holistic admissions policy for students, and you need to attract those students into the. So, are you confident that the retention will be what you set forth in the proposal?
We
You are expecting to lose very few students once they start.
I'll shift that to Heather, who was at Sacred Heart for many years and is familiar with other programs. But I can tell you that the quality of the undergraduates that we have here in our health science program and our recreational therapy program, which are the feeders that we will be focused on initially, are extremely strong students. They're highly successful getting into medical school, PT school, OT school, and other places. So we're basically giving away that revenue right now to other places. So we know they're going to come in qualified. And Heather, what have you seen nationally with retention in occupational therapy?
Yeah, in general, once people begin the program, they are able to succeed and finish. We had a very high graduation rate at Sacred Heart and lost very few students. And I will also say that in general, when we lost students, it was because of kind of front-loading science courses that sometimes act as barriers for certain students when, you know, some of the science is very difficult. In our program, we're weaving the science in throughout. There's not going to be that first semester of foundational content that can be really difficult. So having that more applied with the case-based approaches, I think will make it more accessible for a lot of people. And then also doing the competency-based approaches that we're going to be using for our assessment. Students will be able to try again and try again until they get it. And then once they get it, then they move on. So that, you know, we did that with intentionality so that we can help people get through the program and become occupational therapists.
Thank you. Any other comments from the regents? Motion to approve the program?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Congratulations and good luck with that you're undertaking an important task here, and we wish you well with it.
We thank you so much for your support, and we look forward to reporting back on our success.
We look forward to hearing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is, we are now, we have completed the action items. We are going to informational items. The informational item is the report about AI. This is probably one of the generational changes that we're going to see. This reminds me somewhat of the period when the internet first appeared in the mid-1990s. So this is going to have a very important impact on us and on most other institutions, whether they realize it yet or not. So Provost Cathoria, do you want to introduce this?
Yes, I'm delighted to introduce Provost David Ferreira from Charter Oak State College. He will be making a presentation and talking about, we had organized a CSU AI Day that he had led and organized for the entire system. So Dave, do you want to take the floor and talk about the event and AI in general?
Good morning, everyone. Greetings from Silicon Valley, California. The sun is coming up. And I think it's actually quite ironic that I'm presented to you from Silicon Valley. I'm actually here because I've attended the Future of Higher Education Summit at Coursera's headquarters in Silicon Valley. So we are really excited to really talk to you about this. And so how this really came about is, and kudos to Provost Cathoria for helping to arrange this as well. And, we've been getting, at Charter Oak, faculty have been coming in saying, hey, we really want some more information and guidance on generative AI because ChatGPT, one of the AI tools, came on quickly and historically quickly. Let me give you a piece of data. It took 10 years for Netflix to reach 100 million users. It took ChatGPT 2 months. Reach 100 million users. So this is moving literally at the speed we've never seen before. And so when talking with the other provosts, they're like, yeah, we're seeing the same thing. And the other thing too we noticed was that we already have actually a lot of institutional knowledge across CSCU as far as expertise. And so so in contact with Southern Connecticut State University and CT State, we actually got together, also former regents such as Holly Howery, we got together and actually developed a little bit of a just introduction to start the conversation on the use of generative AI in higher education to then gather feedback on things that faculty and staff really want to see. And so then we can continue on the conversation. So a couple little notes, you have the executive summary, there's the link to the YouTube, links over there for the presentations if you do want to see it. Then also when we kind of gave a description of the sessions, I actually hyperlinked to Recap, which is actually an AI tool that actually would summarize YouTube videos. And also you might notice one of the members here over in this meeting is called Fireflies. That is an AI tool that's going to take meeting notes and actually will not just transcribe, but give an executive summary of the meeting along with action items based upon who spoke. So we'll send that over to you so you can take a look at one of the tools that are actually being used today, and we're using this over at Charter Oak. So as we were, going through this session, it was one very nicely attended. Over 125 was the peak over in one of the sessions. Covering things such as just introducing AI, how we do it from pedagogy, how can faculty assign things over in AI, how do we really guide students in regards to the ethical use of artificial intelligence. That's going to be a really huge component over the next year. And I would say it's two things. One is an equity imperative, because if we don't do that, we're going to see the digital divide grow. And so we really need to do that. And then second, this is one of the pieces of data that I gathered from the conference this week. According to the World Economic Forum, generative AI is actually going to have a disproportionate impact on jobs that require a post-secondary credential. And so 80% of jobs are going to be disrupted by generative AI. And what do we mean by disrupted? At least 10% of your tasks are going to be now changed due to generative AI, where automation actually disproportionately impacted those with, let's say, like a high school diploma or lower. Think about the cashier over at your grocery store. That's automation. Generative AI is going to impact a lot of jobs that actually require these degrees, including software developers and things of that nature. We're still going to need them. It's just that their jobs are going to be highly impacted. And so that's why, as higher education educators, we need to talk about this, because it's going to impact our graduates. And then lastly, rapidly changing AI landscape. This moves literally so quickly, as I mentioned about the users, but also there are, on average, about 10 new generative AI software apps are launched daily. So it is impossible to keep track with full of everything. So we talked about what are strategies in which we can kind of keep engaged in this process, because it will continue to move very quickly. In fact, it's actually estimated that the current state of generative AI in 3 to 5 years is going to get 1,000 times smarter than today. So that's why we really need to wrap our heads around how can we 80-20 this and really understand how we can keep abreast of the landscape. And so as we really talk about, kind of key takeaways, they really fell into two types of categories: opportunities and challenges. Under opportunities, it's here to stay, and it's going to create the new roles of tasks. Again, just like taking meeting minutes, it's going to be automated. It's going to be now used by generative AI. There are tools out there for classroom use, such as how can we make better writers and coders and editors using, and also artists using generative AI. So kind of give a little bit of an introduction of what are those tools. And also in higher education, not only for AI tutors, you may have seen that Harvard is using AI teaching assistants, but also generative AI is going to be used for predictive analytics, so we can actually respond to students in a personalized way as well. And so the role of an academic advisor is still going to be needed, but a lot of the ways to help guide the advisor to maximize their effectiveness is going to be there. That educators are really encouraged to explore and pilot AI tools in their classroom, especially with lower stakes assignments. You don't want to start with if you're the first time using this, don't start it with your final exam. Start it with something early on, lower stakes, and actually use it as an iterative process to go ahead and get better at it. As I said, we really do have to teach our students the ethical use of AI. How do you interact with it? I'll kind of go into a little bit of that a little bit later. And again, this was a kickoff to the conversation. This is one of the, Jeff Salingo was one of the speakers yesterday. He goes, we're in the early innings of this game. And so, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, especially over the next year, but we need to continue the conversations. This is not a one and done. But there are challenges, for on the pendulum between excited and totally scared. I probably lean a little bit more towards excited, but you also need to be scared. I think having that is healthy and it's okay. And so we do need to make sure that we do proceed with caution, because there's things such as data security and bias that we do find from large language models that we need to make sure we account for. AI detection tools. This is something that is obviously a big conversation. And what we, from a personal standpoint, also from what the literature has shown, I would either say don't use it, and I would highly discourage faculty from using AI detection tools for a few reasons. One, the data has shown that actually AI detection tools, one, don't work. They can really only capture GPT 3.5 to some degree of accuracy. It really can't understand GPT-4 or later. So to kind of give you a sense, OpenAI, the free version of ChatGPT is 3.5. That's quickly becoming the MySpace of OpenAI. GPT-4, which is going to be the one that's, and we're actually already starting to talk about GPT-5. It's kind of like the iPhone. By the time you buy the new iPhone, there's already a new iPhone. It's not going to be able to be detected with newer uses of GPT. And so why start to try to implement something that you're not going to be able to control in 3 to 6 months? And then second, what the literature has found is that there's a high false positive rate amongst English language learners and international students because of the way that they write as they're learning the English language is similar to the algorithms of a open AI tool. So you're going to disproportionately negatively impact those students if you do use AI detection tools. So for those reasons, highly discourage faculty from using those tools. And then, but we still have to account for, well, what happens if students do cheat, and so that is a challenge that we do have. And then also, I think another challenge that we have is talk about what is plagiarism. We're really starting to color outside of the lines. And so, for example, if I create something, I have a prompt to create something and I iterate it and I run it past Perplexity instead of running it past Provost Katoria. Is that my intellectual property? Is it not my intellectual property? The U.S. copyright right now is actually asking for comments on rulemaking, so we're really not able to talk too much about copyright because we're still waiting on guidance. But it's really going to change the way in which we maybe think about what is plagiarism. And so we have to have those conversations as educators. And it wasn't in the day there, but actually later on kind of found actually a framework called the 6 Tenets of Post-Plagiarism by Dr. Sarah Elaine Eaton. And so I think it actually wrapped up a lot of this. Dr. Eaton, she is absolutely phenomenal. I actually spoke to her last week, and she wrote a book in 2021 because she's an expert on academic ethics and academic integrity. And she actually wrote a book in 2021. And at the end of the book, she actually predicted that generative AI is going to create a hybrid human and computer type of writing that will be the norm. She predicted this in 2021, and ChatGPT came out a year later. And so she is really great. She is the associate professor at the Workland School of Education at the University of Calgary. She's also the academic director of the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And I had about an hour-long conversation with her last week. And also, she's the editor-in-chief of a scholarly journal on academic integrity. She's an internationally known scholar in this realm. And so I've actually have invited her to a session that we're going to do in November for Charter Oak faculty that I'm also going to open up to CSCU faculty as well. So don't have the dates yet. We're still working through those things, but it's an example where, hey, we would really benefit from a person who's doing this every single day on looking about the impact of generative AI in academic integrity from a person who's studied academic integrity their entire career. So more details on that later on, but we're really excited about that piece. And that's why we need to stay current with new developments. So we did survey the participants. They really said it's a great first step. And I really love the comment of, it gave me the courage to try this with assignments. And so that's the point behind it, which is that, again, we need to be cautious, but also we got to be willing to step outside of our comfort zone and start to try, because again, our students are going to need to use this in the workplace. You know, and the faculty were really saying, we really need to do this. We need to be more out in front about this. And so what are the next steps that we should take? You know, one of the recommended next steps, and an institution can do this. For example, Charter Oak is going to go ahead and do this. We're going to form an AI advisory group. We're going to have it make up of students, faculty, technology experts, employers are really crucial in order to really help guide, you know, how we develop acceptable use policies. How do we develop ethical use policies for generative AI? How do we develop maybe checklists and guidance for students? This should be done in collaboration of all the stakeholders involved: students, faculty, administrators, employers, technology leaders, so that we can do so collectively. And as I said, develop pilot programs across. One of the breakout sessions that we had, they mentioned, hey, as a social and behavioral scientist, how are we doing this? There's really a want and a desire for affinity groups, maybe by discipline. If you're an English faculty member, how are you using this, or how are you designing assignments to maybe mitigate some of the risks of AI? So they really want to have those kind of fostered collaborations and discussions. And so we were asking faculty, you know, what do you want us to do next? So for example, the one big challenge and concern was on academic integrity. So I'm going ahead and we're going to do this and offer it to all CSCU faculty in November. But let's continue on that conversation. So, you know, in essence, you know, that this is probably the most interesting times in higher education. I want to say since a very long time ago, but since 3 years ago. But it is in a way an exciting time. There's a lot of possibilities, and we should do so with the best research possible so that we can do it in a way that benefits our students. And I'll give an example. I've seen some things I can't talk about for that were in beta version, but one thing I can't talk about that was demonstrated was a universal translator, where the person actually presented, and then it was in their own voice sent over in German, in Portuguese, in Spanish. And a great comment was made was, yes, you were able to go ahead and convert this in different languages, but you still need a human and faculty to talk about the culture behind that language in order to fully understand the language. And that's what we mean by having that hybrid human and technology integration, that the faculty are not going to go away. There's not going to be robot faculty, you know, but there are going to be, you know, AI coaches. There are going to be AI TAs that will help the faculty as we go through this. So I hope that, you know, this gave a little bit of a brief introduction, but I want to stop there and really start to go over questions and comments, or if you want to see a demonstration, I'm happy to do that, whatever you'd like.
I have some questions, but I've read my colleagues, any regents, comments, questions? Regent McCarthy?
Gus, good morning. It's fascinating. And certainly if I were still teaching, I'd want to delve much more deeply into many of the issues you raised. I mean, I spent a lot of time, not surprisingly, when I was teaching and figuring out how to write assignments and how to assign papers that could encourage students to write their own work. So this is a whole new set of challenges. But as I was listening to you talking, and I don't have an answer to this, but I'd like you to put on your futurist hat and tell me, what does a board of regents or a board of trustees need to do and know and need to be considering? It's very different from what the classroom teacher or the academic leader needs. But how can you imagine the ways in which institutional policy that might come under the overview of the Board of Regents will need to change. And there I can't make that leap. So I was wondering if you have some ideas about, not to be selfish, but to be selfish, what do we have to do and be prepared to do in this new realm?
Regent McCarthy, excellent question. And I think one thing that could really be a benefit, and it's the same advice I kind of would give to faculty and staff, is play around with it. I think the best way to kind of experience it is to do it. I'm happy to give a lesson on prompt engineering. This is what I do on Friday mornings. Is I set aside time to literally play and prompt engineer, because I use different tools every single day. And it wasn't because I'm not a computer scientist. I'm a political scientist. I'm a liberal arts person. But when this came about, it's like, well, who's going to go ahead and kind of do this and research this? And then I kind of had to look in the mirror, because I'm the chief academic officer for my institution, and I'm responsible for the academic integrity. So I would say play around with it is one way. Periodically keeping the board up to date on this, again, to really give you the highlights, and so you don't have to research. You don't have to go down too many rabbit holes. We can give executive summaries and things of that nature to keep you abreast. And then there will be policy that I think would be impacted. For example, academic integrity policy, I think, is going to have to be looked at. And just updates on, the way that we're going to change the way we teach and give assignments is going to be impacted, and kind of keep you informed on that. So I'll give an example of where we probably want to consider updating our assignments. Currently, the way that we do papers is, here's the topic. I want you to write a 3 to 5 page paper in X in APA format. Here's the rubric. Good luck. Submit it in 3 weeks. And then we hope for the best. Well, in the world of generative AI, the way that we might want to consider doing an assignment is, here's the topic. It's 3 to 5 pages in APA format. Here's the rubric. Write a first draft, and then go into a generative AI tool. I recommend Cloud, and put in this prompt with a text, ask it to help you with the grammar and make suggestions on improvements. See what it actually then spits out. Go through, submit your final paper, and then upload that into Blackboard. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do a reflection, a 1-page reflection on what advice did you take and not take, and why, and then also link your conversation with that AI tool. So what I actually have done is I made the students show the work on how they actually went through the creative process, the iterative process to improve their writing, and their critical thinking behind why did they do things and not do things. So which way is a better way to actually do a paper assignment? The way we historically have been doing this, or maybe this potential new way? And so I think going through those steps.
David, I just want to point out what's old is new. When I was a first-year student in high school, and so we're not even going to do the math about when that was, at Fairfield, our English teacher always demanded and graded our first draft of every essay and our final draft of every essay. So, it's a lot. It sounds like a variation on what Mr. Rondek did in whenever. But you said one thing that I think would be very helpful, but I'm going to put the onus back on you. I would love to have your group that you've put together take on the task of addressing how academic integrity policies need to be changed in the presence of AI. I mean, I can see that as something that could be a responsibility of the Board of Regents. I certainly don't have the expertise or the time to acquire it to contribute to all the details of that policy. But I can imagine at some point in the future, we are going to have to deliberate on what a contemporary, forward-looking AI policy is under the rubric of student integrity. If you could provide, you collectively through the group that you work with, or maybe another group, or with the provost, collectively provide your thoughts, your drafts, your ideas on what an academic integrity policy looks like in this new world. That'd be very helpful.
I think that that's very important. I think the perhaps the provost council, the academic council, should spend the provosts need to understand this clearly, as you do. But I mean, I don't know all your colleagues that well, but I think it's important because they're going to get questions from faculty, from department chairs, and they need to have an idea of how to respond. And one piece that you didn't talk about very much are some of the potential issues. So privacy concerns, what the data set that the student might feed into. Well, that becomes part of the large learning model. It then gets out there. So I think, there has to be an understanding of what the, maybe use the word challenges are in this area. Because privacy, which is an area that I'm interested in, I think is, there are going to be very, very large issues in privacy and as we move forward with this.
Regent Bloom, you're absolutely correct. And actually, in one of the sessions that we had, we did kind of talk about, when do you not use AI? And because that's important. And one of the areas, for example, if you have an assignment where a student may potentially have personally identifiable information, don't upload that into any large language model. So there are assignments where they are not proper for this use. And also at the same time, we need to also educate students on, here are the, generative AI tools that are okay to use, that are safe, that have been vetted, and also, in my moral sense would say, that are also free. I think anything that we use has to be free. We should not be putting added costs onto students. So yeah, absolutely. I think as part of it is, again, that's the digital literacy of the 21st century of how do we make sure we protect our data and privacy in this world. And to Regent McCarthy too, I will actually give, when you say that, the past kind of circles back around again, I will actually go even older. I'll go back to Plato. And Plato actually talked about how writing was actually beneath us, because it's the oratory that really matters, because with writing, you don't go through the iterative process. So I think we're going back actually thousands of years as we really talk about these conversations.
I actually talk about that. These issues are not, Plato was, as you say, opposed to writing because you weakened your memory. So, these are things we have to overcome. But I think I think it's important that that the faculty at large become really familiar with whether an individual faculty member wants to use it or not. They need to know, what the benefits and what the risks are here.
And this is the start of the conversation. And also, I would say this is that our faculty are very very entrepreneurial as well. And so we just want to, facilitate those entrepreneurial pieces to share, and be okay with also say, hey, I tried this and it failed. But to share that with colleagues and to continue that, I think that's going to be really crucial as we do move forward as in this. And actually, I would say one way the board could actually help as well is, the board has a lot of, authority and agency as we do this work of, for example, at Charter Oak with this group, as we're going to look to form. I would love to, partner with the board on connections to employers, for example. I want it to be the proper employers at the table, so that can help us along with our students and our faculty. So I think there is a collaboration that we could have as we do this, and where the board can really help us out.
And one of the things, the students are always ahead of us on these things. So they're going to be submitting papers with using this tool.
Yeah, early indications are it's probably about, from this past academic year, I think it was like a fifth of papers. And but overall, they're still a little bit behind compared to faculty, but that's going to probably end by this year. So this is going to be the year where we have to lay the groundwork. We can't wait longer than this academic year. This has to be done now, because also, you know, in the K through 12 system, students are going to grow up with this, and they're going to expect this when they come to higher education. So, for example, you know, Sal Khan of Khan Academy released Conmingo, and I saw the beta version of it when he presented it at the ASU GSV Summit. I saw the YouTube video. I would recommend to go and watch that. It is weird, scary, and exciting all at the same time, but it shows what the K through 12 experience is going to be like. And obviously, when they come over here, we need to be prepared for that. And students are going to expect a similar experience in similar tools.
There is one, I just want to make one anecdotal comment from the legal world about some of the things, the possible risks in this. A lawyer in a case, which unfortunately for that lawyer got wide publicity in the New York Law Journal, submitted a brief that had been written by ChatGPT. He did not proofread it. He did not site check it. ChatGPT had a batch of hallucinations. It invented cases that didn't exist. And when the opposing counsel went to find the cases, of course, they couldn't find them. Of course, the judges' clerks couldn't find them either. So, you know, the responsibility is still, as the judge emphatically pointed out, still with the person who submitted it. But, you know, this lawyer was taking a shortcut by having, you know, without, you know, and it looked good. I mean, it had case citations and all the, you know, all the artifacts that we're supposed to have, but they were all hallucinations of ChatGPT. So, you know, there's obviously risk in this kind of thing if you charge ahead without, if you charge ahead without doing the work.
Yeah, and actually, I was speaking to a senior partner in one of the large law firms up here in Hartford about that, and he actually had a very interesting observation. He goes, "Yeah, I'm a little bit mad at the junior lawyer who did that. I'm really mad at the senior partner who didn't check it."
Yes. Yeah.
And so, you know, because that's the job of a senior partner, is to, in a way, check the work of the junior, you know, lawyer, and so to kind of correlate that into higher education, it does put it maybe upon faculty and others as the leader of how do we take a look at you know, ways in which, you know, we have to have a responsibility for checking. But at the end of the day, and I've issued some recommended classroom guidance to my faculty. I'm actually presenting that next week. And we're going to work to try to move these conversations through our academic governance process, because obviously that falls in line with our academic governance. At the end of the day, our faculty will make that determination, but we're making it very clear to the student that you are not responsible. You are responsible for everything, including the output. And so one of the sessions that we had was, you know, faculty member was very concerned about, well, if they just put in a prompt, they're going to copy and paste and they're going to pass the course. And so in a live session, I said, not necessarily, because if you put out a bad prompt, you're going to get a bad output. And so live, I went in and I said, okay, write me a 3-page paper on the reasons why the Civil War was caused by slavery. And so horrible prompt, right? And it in an output, basic factual information, nothing special, no critical analysis. And so I said, here you go, take this paper, put it up against your rubric. What grade would you give this student? Probably a D, maybe an F. I said, if they go ahead and do this and they realize that this is not going to help them pass the course, they're ultimately no longer going to use it just for a copy and paste. So I encourage you to, as a faculty member, go out there, put out maybe some of your assignments, put a basic prompt in there and see what the output is, and then overlay that with your rubric. And then maybe edit your rubric if the grade is going to be good, right? Or think about ways in which you can update your assignment or the prompt that you would give to the students. So that's the iterative process that I think we can all go ahead and do. But at least a little bit of fears is that if you put for a person who's putting out a bad prompt, they're probably not going to get a good grade in that paper.
Questions, other questions, comments? Well, I want to thank you very much. This was very, very helpful, very illuminating. And I think the important, Regent McCarthy's point, and the other is this needs to get spread out among the faculty need to understand what what the pros and cons are of this, and how in general how it works. I mean, I remember, unfortunately, when the internet came, I chaired a computer use committee at that point in 1803, whenever that was, in the 1990s. And a lot of faculty wanted nothing to do with the internet in the beginning. They had their ways of doing things, but the internet students were engaged with this. So I think it's important that everybody that this is knowledge becomes generally available for the students, for the faculty, and maybe maybe we do need to think about some kind of ethical use policy here that the board would a very high level policy that the board would think about.
Commissioner Giuttani, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make one additional comment. Thank you for that very helpful presentation. And I think to the question of, how can a board use this information? I think individual educators and classrooms are going to have to figure out how to use this as you've outlined. There's no doubt about that. And I think this is going to be a continual challenge in all of higher ed. It's true in every sector. People are trying to figure out how this is going to apply to medical care, how, what are the policies that are, going to apply across hospitals in many different settings. This is going to be, and coming up with consensus agreements across higher ed, that in terms of what is a policy on some of these things probably is going to be helpful. People are looking at this at the level of, for all of Connecticut, there is a group that's looking to try to have an AI consortium across the state to try to address these issues in multiple different sectors. So I think there will be more to come on this, but I did want to raise one point on, I think as a board, how people can also think about this, which is that how this evolves over time and how much does this impact the workplace, and where are jobs going to potentially be less competitive or less necessary or needed, as we just talked about with fireflies on this call, doing note-taking, transcribing, and that was usually somebody's job who did that. There's going to be more of that going forward, a lot more of it. And I think recognizing programs that are going to best equip students in this system to get jobs at the end is something that I think is just an unfortunate reality of thinking about, and I think as something that this group will need to think about as time goes on, because we want to really be able to make sure when people ask, well, what are these students doing when they graduate? What kind of job placement are they getting? How are they able to use the education that they got to enter the workplace? I just see that as a potential challenge and something that this board should think about.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think that's a very insightful comment that we, obviously we want our graduates to be prepared to move into the workplace. And, I can see even, in the legal field, I mean, this could take, there may be need for fewer junior associates to make the mistake that, because if the prompts are good, so I think your point is very important. It's going to change the workforce in a whole variety of, in a whole variety of areas.
You see it with the screenwriters strike. That's
This is
actually
about,
over.
that's what it's about,
Yep,
basically.
that's what it's about. It's estimated that within the next 5 years, 80% of news articles will be written by generative AI. Again, there'll probably still be a human to oversee it, but you may need less if of that particular field. When the note taker actually, my administrative assistant is the one who got the license for it, and I said it doesn't replace John, my assistant. It just frees up John's time to do higher level things, but to make sure that they're skilled for those things. So, for example, he's actually interested now in artificial intelligence, and so he's going to be doing more things on AI with his time that was freed up from no longer. He spent 30% of his time taking meeting notes and transcribing and things like that. That 30% is now down to 5% of his job. So.
Regent James, you had a
I'm sorry.
question, comment?
Yes, it's funny because when you started, I definitely am on the terrified end of it more than the excited end because it just seems so enormous. And I have found this to be extremely helpful. One of the things, as we're having this discussion, I realize is that so much of what we have to impart in terms of knowledge and work skills are task oriented, and there's just volumes of data and information. And that's where I feel AI can really help, as you say, streamline that and make that much more effective. What it also says, though, is we really do have to place more emphasis on critical thinking, problem solving, and communication skills, because all of these new tools and technologies and approaches involve it still involves understanding, relationship building. Um, and I actually think that's an art that we have lost over the years in education because we've been trying to cram so much data and facts, and we have become so task oriented. So I do, it's exciting, but I do think it's a transformational change in terms of, in some ways, um, going back to basics. It's really about critical thinking and problem solving and doing that in different kind of environments with a whole new set of tools.
And Regent James, you're absolutely right. Is that I would argue that the liberal arts are more important now more than ever, and so we can teach skills. We can boot camp in 16 weeks, but if you boot camp a student in 16 weeks, then we send them over into the workplace and they're like, but we also want interpersonal communication. And those, that's what keeps you, yeah, a skill might get you the job, but those, what I call human skills, I don't call them soft skills, that's what gets you into your career and advances you in your career. And the data, actually, there was a recent report by Gallup that just came on out about the value of a baccalaureate degree, and not just over it, not just economical. The $1 million more in your lifetime. That's the just the cover of it, but also about the impact towards job flexibility. The baccalaureate degree offers you flexibility in your life, because you are able to then, as technology changes, you have those skills to pivot. So while yes, not every job needs a baccalaureate degree, and I know there's a lot of states and things like that that are dropping the baccalaureate requirement, and for some jobs, yes, absolutely, we don't want the baccalaureate to be a gatekeeper, but I will still very much defend the role that our higher education can play in producing graduates that will have family sustaining wages and also better healthcare outcomes and everything else in life, better civic participation to have a thriving society. So, and this is, I think when we look at the use of generative AI, is how do we use that again as a tool to enhance those innovative thinking skills? Because it's also about innovative thinking, which is actually one of our new gen eds here at Charter Oak. Innovative thinking is not just critical thinking and not just creative thinking, it's process improvement. It's because when you go into a career or in society, it's how you can take what we have and make it better. That's what's really needed. And so And that's really, as you're going through and with generative AI, how can we use it to enhance a student's innovative thinking skills so that they can make what they have better, I think is so crucial today.
If I could just follow up with one other comment on that, which is that I completely agree that problem solving, critical thinking, and communication skills is what students need to graduate with. And showing the value of the education and how it helps them get there is going to be the challenge for the educators, because of the, that is going back to basics. That is what always, a liberal arts education was designed for, I think. But making sure that people get that when they leave will show the value of what the education is, because that's what's going to really let somebody excel in the workplace, in the higher level jobs, to the point that you were making about how, if 95% of the job was note taking, but now you have freed up your time to be able to do all these other things. Well, you have to be capable of doing those other things. And we need to make sure that the workforce is capable of doing those other things so that they can actually excel in those jobs in the way that we want them to.
And I would say, to your point there, which is, the value, I'm here at this conference, obviously we're talking not just about generative AI, that was a huge topic, but we're talking about micro-credentials and stackable credentials. So how do we, badge them, and how do we, use that metadata to show over to employers on those types of skills? Communication is a really big one. And actually, I gave the example at the summit. As I've been doing prompt engineering, as I've been getting better at prompt engineering, I've noticed I'm actually, in a way, a better communicator. And let me give you a humorous analogy. I have a beta version of a human. They're called teenagers. And so if I give a bad prompt, if I go there and say, go clean your room, horrible prompt, there will be a bad output because I didn't communicate a good prompt. Where if I said, you are a teenager who's tasked with cleaning your room to make sure it doesn't look like we were raised by a pack of wolves, and your aunt is coming over, and I want to make it look halfway presentable. Please pick up the clothes, make the bed, and rearrange this area over here where it's actually nice and neat and stacked, and actually go ahead and take care of the dust over on the corners. That is a much better prompt than go clean your room. And I'm going to get a much better output. So as I was doing that, I was thinking about this is, as I'm doing prompt engineering, I'm thinking about how do I communicate to a large language model? I'm thinking, how do I also take these skills to improve my communication to my coworkers, to my family? And so I think that's maybe as a tangible example of how we can use a skill in generative AI like prompt engineering to actually improve our communication skills.
That's there's in a sense two sides to this. I was at a presentation recently where one of these presenters said, well, the AI they can produce your lesson plan, they can produce your lecture for your well, if I need to think about how I want to present this. And just what you're saying, I can imagine clean the room. If you came into my office, nothing would be left of the various piles of paper that I have. It would be clean, but so would everything. Everything would disappear, presumably. But I think there's a balance here of how we use it and what we use it for, and it can be. I think it also can be overused in that sense.
Yeah, actually, I have a prompt if you did want to see it over on using Bing Chat, where about creation of a course. So actually, if you are curious, I'm happy to share it. I'll give you just an example of this. So this is Bing Chat, which actually uses a GPT-4. It's free. You just have to use it in Edge. So I put in this prompt. I said, you are an expert instructional designer who designs highly effective, engaging online courses, using universal design of learning and inclusive design principles. You're designing, I'm a political scientist, POL 150, American government for undergraduate students, and then it's an asynchronous online course. I put in the course description, I put in the outcomes, right? And so I want to use zone of proximal for learners, offer an optimal stretch for engagement and things like that. So I ask it now for an output of, to begin the design, let's start with a table for the 8 weeks that include the following columns: week, topic, learning outcomes, readings and videos, and assignments. Also, I said I wanted to use open educational resources. Okay, you want to see what it spits out? Okay, so it's thinking. And what it'll do is it will start to come in. It actually will produce a decent first draft. Okay. But as the faculty member, all right, it gave me maybe some links to what I should look at, but ultimately I have to go through and see what's actually good and what's actually not good of this one. But it found the OpenStax course, OpenStax book, and it'll actually link to it. It's pull in videos from Khan Academy. Again, these are because I asked for open educational resources. Okay. So this is what it's producing here in week 1. It's now going to week 2 because again, it's taking a look over at my my outcomes over here and what's the role of it. And so, all right, it's taking a look at which chapters go with which weeks. All right. Again, I've taught American government now for close to 20 years. It's as I'm going through this, it's pretty good. But obviously I'm gonna have to go through as a human and take a look at what's good and what's not good. But it will probably do about maybe 70% of the initial work for me. Now again, I created this prompt. I took this was me playing around on a Friday morning of how can I, because what I'm trying to do is as an online institution, obviously course development is a huge task. It's a very time consuming task. And so I was taking a look at, well, how can I, so how can I go ahead and give some resources to my subject matter experts that can help with the initial component of it. Let's see here. Oh, it did weeks 1 through 4. Let me see here. Okay. I'm going to say it gave me the first 4 weeks. I'm asking for 8 weeks. Sometimes it gives all 8, but okay. I'm going to say, how about weeks 5 through 8? Please continue. Again, I asked, please, I want to be nice for this one. Yep, sure. Okay, great. Sorry, I'm going to go. So again, it went off the rails just for a little bit, but so now I can continue on with the second half of the course. So again, it shows where I have to do an iterative process. I have to see what it's actually producing, because obviously it's actually going to produce something a little bit different. I've done this now about 2 times because I was curious to see what it would produce. And again, sometimes it gives me all 8 weeks. One time it just stopped in the middle, and I said, "Hey, you just stopped. You kind of froze up. Can you please continue on?" So, Bing Chat actually has it's good. But I can only do 5 interactions back and forth. What I did do in one of these iterations, I said, hey, you did a pretty good job with giving me quizzes and ideas for discussion posts, but there was no cumulative assignment. I really wanted to do a cumulative assignment. And so what I did was I went to ChatGPT, and there's a prompt that I can give you if you're curious, is if you're not good at prompt engineering, I have a prompt to give you a better prompt. And help you learn prompt engineering. So I put in this idea. ChatGPT gave me a good prompt to give. I then went back and said, here's the cumulative assignment I was thinking of. I wanted an oral presentation for an online course that they uploaded because again, I want the student to show their work. So yeah, this is it has a lot of good uses, but again, as the human and as the subject matter expert in my discipline, obviously I need to go ahead and make sure I confirm all this work, see what's good, what's not good. But it did help me and speed up my development process of this course, should I be redesigning, POL 150 American Government.
Again,
I showed it to my program directors. Their jaws dropped. But
any other questions, comments before we let Provost Freire escape? Do we Okay, thank you very much. I think this was a very important presentation. I would leave it to you and Provost Cathoria to work through how this needs to get circulated to the Provost Council and to various key academic bodies on the campuses. So I think Charter Oak's knowledge and awareness of this has to be broader, has to be made more broadly available, I think.
Yeah, and I thank you very much, and my honor to present. But also, I said I got to also give kudos to our fellow folks from CSCU, Colleen Bielitz from Southern Connecticut, and Forrest Helger and Adrian Dunham from CT State, and obviously Holly Howery formerly of the board, but now of Charter Oak. She's actually our faculty member teaching digital literacy, our new gen ed. And actually covering the ethical use of AI. So we have a lot of institutional knowledge here of our faculty. And so this is just a tip. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more available, and we're really excited to work with everyone as we do this. And so, but thank you again, and please feel free to ask any other follow-up questions later on, and glad to be here for you.
Thank you again. We have below threshold items. Any comments or questions about the below threshold items? None. Okay. The list of pending issues for our committee for future meetings that just keep everybody up to date. Title IX, teaching of reading, which we had talked about, and I think if my memory doesn't fail me, Regent James had asked for a more in-depth presentation about it at the last meeting of the committee, and a number of other things. I think we are also thinking about a presentation from the system provost on enrollment projections, similar to the financial projections that went before the Board of Regents the budget committee or fiscal affairs committee. Forthcoming.
Yes.
Forthcoming. Any other business on the agenda?
I know the clock's ticking, but I'm very much interested, as you know, in the enrollment projections topic, but along with that, also discussions of overall enrollment strategies.
Yes, that was part of it. Yeah,
we think enrollment is so critical in all of its dimensions that I really hope we can have some kind of an informed discussion and some further documentation on that.
And I would like to add I would make it enrollment and retention.
Yes, yeah, it's fine. When I say enrollment, I think of recruiting, applications, acceptances, continuation, graduation, the whole process beginning to end.
I think we're all in agreement. Yeah. Madam Chair.
Yes, Chair Bloom, thank you, and Chair McCarthy, thank you. I would like to humbly suggest that we have some special discussion devoted entirely to enrollment, retention, and the recruitment, and just focus completely on that. Be as creative as we can. This is key to our future and the future of our institution. So I really think it's a vital subject. So if I may just make that suggestion, not that I'm one to add another meeting, but I think it would be important and very, very valuable.
We'll schedule a meeting. Yeah, we will schedule a meeting to deal on the question of enrollment, with the broader definition of enrollment that Regent McCarthy talked about.
Chairman Bloom, I just want to thank you for such a thought-provoking meeting. I find this process and the fact that as a committee we can explore things in depth and have these kinds of conversations enlightening. And I really, one of the things I come away with is how impressed I am with our intention and focus on investing in innovation and areas of unmet needs, but at the same time balancing that with the discipline to critically evaluate the areas that are not meeting needs and having the courage to discontinue those programs. So I just want to thank you for a time very well spent in terms of grounding for this academic year.
Thank you. And I think this will be AI and the associate will become much more visible during this academic year than it has been, whether we like it or not. It's going to be, I think, much more in our lives. I was, as I said, interested to this experience with this, a lawyer. I mean, somebody who's trained and should know better, falling into this kind of trap. It's so anyway. Thank you, Regent James. Any other what I call good and welfare comments for the good of the cause before we adjourn? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. I think we had two hands, I think. So we have all in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. I thank everybody. I thank everybody for their time. I think we're off to a very interesting start for this academic year, and we will schedule more meetings of this type where there is a significant focus on issues.
Thank you all. I will end your live stream. Hold on, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your live